What's up, you guys? This is Devin from Project Sax, and yes, I know I've been gone for a while. I've been out, doing things and doing finals, and then when I get back, and I promise you guys some videos, my video editor or recorder won't work, and it's just getting on my nerves, guys. You don't know how, if you don't know how painful video editing and processing is, if the video editor does not work like you want it to, it does not process like you want it to, and it takes forever on your computer. And I only have a laptop, which I do all my papers and stuff on, and it's very, very hard to have a reliable editor that, you sit there and wait for it to process for 30 minutes, 2 hours in some cases, and then it wants to say it failed after 2 hours of processing successfully. It want to say it doesn't process correctly, or didn't process correctly, excuse me. So that's the problem that I'm facing with right now. This is just audio, and audio is not as hard to encode as video is. So I figured I would do an audio log kind of Project Sax log for you with audio only. And this is going to be a review on the new Eastman Reeds. Now, the Eastman Reeds are a fairly new brand of reeds. I never really heard of them. I don't know exactly when they came out, but it had to have been recently, or they have made it big recently. First, I want to say that the reeds are actually cheaper than the traditional Vandorens. Vandoren seems to be the contender of reeds when it comes to quality and performance. Rico seems to be more of the cheaper brand that everybody likes and will perform for you when you need it to, and not necessarily the best sound quality wise. That's just the stigma I see going around with popular musicians in the band of higher level musicians. They don't use Ricos. They tend to use Vandorens a lot more for a more quality sound. But it's all about what you really want, and that's why we're going to do this Project Sax review on the Eastman Reeds. Now, the Eastman Reed Company has two cuts out right now. One of them is called the Venuto Reed, and the other one is called the I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I believe it's Spanish, but it begins with an E, and you can look it up. But we're going to be working on the Venuto Reeds today, so you don't really have to worry about the second brand. But the second, excuse me, not brand, but the second cut is a little bit thicker than the Venuto Reeds. So the Venuto Reeds really yield to the beginner. It really, is designed for somebody who is just starting, or intermediate, or an advanced saxophone player who likes that thin, responsive tone. So we're going to start off with the tone quality of the reeds. And I found that playing these reeds was very, very fun. It's fun to be able to, jump off the wall with your saxophone and be able to play it, the low notes, as efficiently as you're able to play the high notes, and as efficiently as you're able to play the altissimo notes. It's very, very intriguing to be able to have that freedom and response throughout the entire horn, so if so you will. But the only thing about it is, I think at the very, very bottom of the horn, it wanted to fizzle out on me. It didn't really want to give me that full response. So I'd say that the tone, which is basically the playability throughout the entire instrument, is like a 95% for Eastman, which is really good for that brand of reed, because you think that if you have a cheaper reed, you lose quality, but you actually have a decent amount of quality for the actual longevity life of the reed itself. As I was playing it, it really did give me, a 95%, tonal efficiency of the horn. Basically, it was just generally a quality tone. Whatever I got at the bottom was the response I got at the top. And it was very predictable, so that's probably good for a younger instrumentalist who really wants that predictability. You don't want to be practicing something as a young instrumentalist and then get to your reed and get it all warmed up and all the wrinkles out of it and all the warps out of it, and just in case it's warped, and you get it all straight and you get it all nice, and you get your tone all nice and you warmed up, and you figure out that the E didn't sound like the low E, the middle E doesn't sound like the top E, and it's very hard to play it, but it's very consistent throughout. So I like the tone quality of these reeds. the response is the next thing we'll go over. And the response was very, very good. The response was actually a little bit too good for my needs. Now, for those of you who don't, know what I mean by response is when you play a note, when you literally blow a note and you put that effort into it, how long between the time where you put the effort into it does it come out of the saxophone, and how accurate does it come out to what your embouchure dictates, because as an advanced saxophone player, you have an embouchure that is geared towards a certain sound, a certain, ambiance that you want to create with your note. And that is, surely you really want that to happen when you play that note, but sometimes it doesn't always happen because reeds are inconsistent just in general. It's not just this brand itself. And it's all up to the company who makes the reed, whether it performs and how long it performs that good. So I think that the response of the reeds over time is pretty good. I give it like an 80%, and the reason I say this is because the response when you first get the reed and it first warms up and it's playing at its optimal quality, it's very, very, very good. But after you've played it for about maybe a week or so, it tends to lose its rigidity. It's not as consistent with its response. And what I mean by that exactly is that when I'm playing it may fizzle out on the tone a little bit because the response is so fast. Like, I don't know if it's the way I play, but I'm actually, matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it's the way I play. I'm more of a a real a bright player, a real first saxophonist, soloist type of player. So I really want that that loud sound, that standout sound. And when you have a response that's extremely fast, like these Eastman Reeds have or present, you are ready for it, but then you can overblow the horn really easily. And that's what I do not like. That's kind of a con for me. But if it's for you, especially if you're on a more open mouthpiece than mine. Mine's an A6 opening. That's like a, like a 70th of an inch. It's pretty good. It's pretty good, but it's a little bit too responsive because my mouthpiece generally is closed, and that 70 thousandths of an inch, or however these crazy manufacturers of the mouthpiece, mouthpieces, these engineers basically measure the opening of your mouthpiece. But basically, my mouthpiece is intermediate. It's not necessarily too open, so the reed doesn't have that much vibration room. So when you play the note will vibrate, and then when you put too much air behind it, then the reed will shut down because it can't vibrate as fast as the air quality that you're sending through it. So that's a very that's a B for me. Or for those of you who are on a grading scale of like 8 or 9 or 6, that would be like a C for me at 80% on the response. Okay, and now we're moving on to the style of the reed. Now, when you look on the back of the Eastman Venuto reed box for the alto saxophone, you're looking at all the powerful, wonderful adjectives that they give you, and of course, you're the company. You're supposed to promote your reed exactly how you designed it, how you want it to sound, but that's not always how it is in reference to the real world. Maybe they might be glorifying things, and all that's gilded is not gold. So when I'm playing this reed and I look at the style of the reed, they say that it's good for jazz and it's good for traditional classical music. Well, yes, that's true. It is good for jazz in a sense, especially if you have a more open mouthpiece, say a Dave Sanborn type mouthpiece, which gives you a really open sound, or a Gerald Albright mouthpiece, a Beechler, or an Autolink or a Lakey mouthpiece. Those are really open mouthpieces generally, for an open sound, or a first chair saxophone, a soloist saxophonist sound, and that's what you want. But if you don't have a reed that's responsive, or if it's too, thick or resistant to your playing, then you won't be able to blow, the crisp tone that you want. So it's really good for people who have really open mouthpieces like that. But for my mouthpiece at this point in time, it's a little counterproductive, especially for me wanting to branch out. And I was using a size 3 reed, Eastman. So it's just all about what you want to do, but it could be the perfect match for you. So don't let me deter you. This is not for me to bash Eastman. This is not for me to bash them just because they're a cheap reed brand. Cheap doesn't mean bad. Cheap means, okay, we have used less money to create this product. Now, what do you think of it? That's my opinion, and that's why I'm reviewing these reeds, because sometimes what's gilded is gold. So yes, and so on the style, I would say that it more yields itself to the traditional, maybe classical music, like say for instance, you're in the 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade, middle school, and you're in a younger band, that you can really play these, in any situation, because it's easy to blend. They took off the edge. When you're playing this reed, there's no edge, there's no horn like edge. You don't get a lot of horn, and you don't get a lot of feedback from the horn. If you know what I'm talking about, it's the vibrational edge that the saxophone gives off at certain tones and certain ranges, especially in the higher range. It gives more of an edgy type, sharp attack towards the notes, and sometimes you don't want that being in a large band setting, like a big piece band or concert band or symphonic band, where you want to blend and mellow and warm and smooth out and be lavishly entwined with everybody. So yes, it will be good for a concert band, but probably not the easiest to rock with in a jazz type setting, where if you are a soloist, you can't really you don't have a lot of power to push to this reed. Moving on to the build quality. The build quality, I'd say it was decent enough. Now, it's decent enough to play, but if you're in a studio, you really want to read that could, more on the lines of Vandoren for this, because the Eastman reed, what it did, for me when I was playing the reed, now this might not happen all the time, but I'm pretty sure if the reed is made like this, then it's going to kind of behave like this on a regular basis, whereas when I'm playing this Eastman reed, it really gives me like how reeds normally get warped. Okay, when you get the warp out, because sometimes you have to. I mean, that's just the way reeds are. Sometimes they get warped when they're in different, temperature situations, temperature densities, and it's not easy for the instrumentalist to actually play. But when you warm it up and get the warp out, you get like a razor, something like fine edge razor, and kind of contour it the way you need to, or shave off some of the back. Some people have various voodoo magic tips that they do to get their reed to play exactly how it was when they took it out the case prior to or before they had played it before. But I think the Eastman reed really didn't have that cut at the edge. I guess they cut it so it will be very, very responsive, but when they cut it at the tip so it can be very responsive, it really didn't improve the build quality that much, because when I started to play it for after a week or so, and I started to cure it out more, it starts to get really flimsy at the tip where where your tongue hits, and then my attacks and releases are very, very they become weaker, and they become more beginnerish, because the reed vibrations are just inconsistent because of after you get the warp out and you're working it, because sometimes you have to work in realistic conditions, and what they say on the back of the box might not actually be what happens. You don't bring, if you read the brochure all the time, you're not going to get the realistic feel, because if you just rely on what the brochure says, you don't get the actual real life application of the reed. And that's what I'm here to bring to you guys today, from what I experienced. And I've been playing for about 13 years, so it's valid experience for that matter. But generally, the reed is overall good, especially if you're a teacher trying to get a student to learn how to play a reed. First saxophone type deal, especially like a 2.5 for this. I was playing a 3, but I might if I want to continue with the Venuto style Eastman reeds, I might want to go up to a 3.5 or maybe even 4, because I want to have a lot more sound traveling out of the horn initially, and I want to have I want the ability to be able to play soft ballads with a lot of warmth around the note, like a good singer, with a lot of extra sound surrounding the note, not just tone itself. So I want a lot of that. I want a little bit more of that saxophone-esque sound. I want a little bit more of that edge to be in my, because I want the spontaneity of the instrument too. If the saxophone, kind of has that squeaky, edgy type sound, I want to go with that. If that's where the saxophone is going, because I want to have that, spontaneity. I remember listening to a Bradford Marcellus interview where he was saying that was it Miles Davis didn't like the spontaneity or love the spontaneity of the music, and didn't want you to just play it straight, and predictably. He wanted you to be able to be spontaneous and bring it back as much as possible to expand the music to a wider realm. So for Project Sax, guys, this is Devin with my thoughts on the Eastman Venuto reed. The size 3 is more of like an intermediate, for most reed sizes, or resistances. So that's one I chose for this one. It's the Venuto Eastman Reed. This is Devin from Project Sax, wishing you guys good sound, and I think that this reed is something you might want to buy today.